So we're going to look at the ratings on Metacritic, on Rotten Tomatoes, and on IMDb for Zack Snyder's Justice League. But we're not going to look at the ratings by critics. Don't care about them. We're going to look at the ratings by the audience, okay? People who watched it. So when we look at Metacritic, this is the audience rating is 8.9 after everything is accumulated. This is out of 3,583 ratings. And we even have some reviews. So we go through some of them. All right? What the audience thinks. That's what I care about. So anyway, overall, 88% of the people really enjoyed it and gave a positive rating. 5% gave mixed ratings and 5% gave negative ratings. Let's look at it. Cosman78 says, this is somebody who did a review. This is not just rating now. This is reviews. He said that a true epic journey of the Justice League members got out of the pages of comic books and they portrayed them on the screen. The Flash scene, Into the Speed Force, and Back to the Past was beyond amazing. The new gods were wonderful and terrifying at the same time. Superman and Wonder Woman were at God mode power level. Zack and Chris Terrio, you really know your comics. A masterpiece. And he gave it a 10. All right, April 7th, I think that's today. Lucius McGibbon said, wow, it's a good Justice League movie. It's sad and alarming to know that the people in charge chose to defecate the Whedon cut into theaters when we could have had this all along. Long as hell, ponderous at several points, and still probably the most drastically improved alternate cut in Hollywood history. A strong 7. Here's somebody who gave a negative review, actually. They gave 0 for it. Natasha Hyde. She said, it was very hard to watch. The music is cringe, and the scenes are full of awkward silence with mediocre acting. Black and white shots with cuts that are asymmetrical and difficult to follow. The extra scenes presented in this version are irrelevant and, in my opinion, lack artistic depth. A perfect example of what cinematography is nowadays, a dead whale washed ashore with bystanders taking the last shots of it. B-Boy Ray says, the magnum opus of comic book movies and the best that DC has ever offered yet. Give it a 10. Mr. Dan Za says the movie suffered from too much slow motion and the addition of awkward slow motion music montages. Other than that, the movie was great. The Justice League actually feels like a team, and Steppenwolf has legitimate motivations other than just wanting to conquer the Earth. The fight scenes are the most improved from the original and are very entertaining on their own. Well done, Zach. And you guys can go ahead and read the rest. In IMDb, I didn't get individual reviews, but I'm sure you can get individual reviews, don't get me wrong. But overall rating was 8.2 out of 10 out of 245,581 ratings. So here's the latest review. At the beginning, I thought that the 4 hours would be too much with a lot of speech between different characters, but fortunately, I was wrong. The film is much better than its predecessor. With almost the same dialogues and main scenes, there's more action, suspense, and drama in it, with the participation of important DC characters that make it a bigger superhero movie. I know and I understand why it didn't prevail and become in the first. But Zack Snyder has found the right way, and someone didn't allow him to take it. It's a shame, because it would have been the best rise of DC's universe. Okay, here's Rotten Tomatoes. So I don't care, obviously, about the critic score. Couldn't really give a damn. The audience, 95% of the audience, this is 25,000 plus ratings. 95% of the audience gave a favorable score. The audience consensus says, with more action, more character development, and double the runtime, this is the epic Justice League that Zack Snyder fans have been asking for. Now, let me just say, it's not just Zack Snyder fans. Most people, most fans, MCU or otherwise, who've seen this movie, really liked it. Here is the audience's reviews of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Philip P., who's a super reviewer, he gave it 4 stars out of 5. And he says, here's the thing. This version of this movie was never meant for public consumption. This may have eventually landed on Blu-ray, as the Ultimate Edition of Zack Snyder's Justice League had some version of Zack Snyder's vision actually been released in theaters. But even that form wouldn't have been this form exactly. I may never understand why Warner Brothers didn't simply break this up into 2 parts and release them separately. Give us a few standalone movies, a la Aquaman Flashpoint, as well as something like Shazam, after releasing the conclusion to Snyder's Darkseid saga with the Justice League. But if the 2021 release of the Snyder Cut proves anything, it's that what-ifs actually have the chance of becoming reality. Additionally, when considering Zack Snyder's Justice League, one also has to consider the context with which it has now been received and how it is completely different from how it would have been received in 2017. Is it better than Justice League? Of course. But is it good on its own terms? Is it even a movie that can exist on its own terms? The answers to these questions are a little more complicated. Given Snyder's penchant for Renaissance-like visuals and his mentality that approaches these comic book heroes with the seriousness of Greek mythology, I was completely in the bag from the moment Christopher Nolan and WB named him the man to take up the DC mantle at the studio. Dawn of Justice and Man of Steel are at the top of my DCU rankings, and I wrote several thousand words on the theatrical cut of Justice League in 2017 regarding its overcorrection to the complaints logged against Snyder's vision. But now that you know the context from which I come from, you should also know that I really loved a lot of what Zack Snyder's Justice League offered, even if we'll never see any more of it pay off. Most surprising in this new cut is the different tone Snyder's film carries from that of its DCEU companions. Yes, things are still dark and dour for portions of the runtime, but overall, there's certainly a more hopeful vibe to the proceedings, especially given the addition of Ezra Miller's Barry Allen and the fleshed-out arc of Ray Fisher's Victor Stone. These two characters saw the most drastic changes from what was released in the theaters to Snyder's version, and the restoration of their stories gives way to a story as much about loss and the trauma of such loss, and the rediscovering of oneself in the wake of tragedy as it is about the intergalactic CGI monsters trying to take over the universe. Of course, CGI baddies are still something of a mess, as it's difficult to conjure any kind of tangible feelings towards Steppenwolf, as he's very much still a lackey to Darkseid and garners little sympathy despite Snyder and screenwriter Chris Terrio attempting to graft a redemptive arc onto his journey. On the upside, Snyder's film isn't really about the villain, as Steppenwolf is present solely to serve as a function of the plot, while the story Snyder is telling, the essence of what he wants to do with these characters, is focused on the through line of exploring what it means when gods come to Earth. That began in Man of Steel. Continuing to explore the system of checks and balances these heroes bring with them, the building of this team allows for Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne to share in a power and responsibility carried for too long on his own, a passing of the torch in some respects to the trinity of Jason Momoa's Aquaman, the most slighted of the leads in this version, Cyborg, and Flash, who each are finding their literal and figurative footing. Whereas Wayne is the head of construction, Gal Gadot's Diana Prince is the architect who uses her experiences and ever-evolving understanding of growth to meld these disparate parts into a cohesive team. Zack Snyder's Justice League has and takes the time necessary to establish these dynamics, making the eventual culmination of the least resistant to Steppenwolf that much more magnificent. So yes, taken as a continuation of Snyder's DC films and a study in the full circle of uncertainty, doubt, and fear alien beings and Cape Crusaders would initially bring upon society, as opposed to the assumed relief and inherent trust, this version of Justice League is absolutely a good film on its own terms, and that stands on the shoulders of the two Snyder DCU films. You really talked a lot. There is real heart and thought in these proceedings, genuine investment in what these superpowered people mean to and for the universe they exist in. And even when Snyder's work inevitably devolves into a finale filled with an onslaught of CGI, there is still an eloquence to his visual storytelling that lends each frame a panel-like quality that speaks volumes without any corrector having to utter a line of dialogue. One glance at any shot in his cut of Justice League exemplifies Snyder's adoration for this material, and like any of those individual frames, Zack Snyder's Justice League is something beautiful to behold. Spencer W. says, honestly, I thought it would have been a stinker, but it was better due to the change thematics. There are still CGI mishaps, but I was extremely surprised how good this turned out. I think Snyder can tackle more films, but I think he can try to tackle other different film genres. And then that was 4 stars as well out of 5. 4 stars out of 5 again. A hell of a lot better than the Whedon cut. Has good character development and totally different than what we first saw. Very long, but worth it. Dry at time, but overall 4 out of 5. Abigail P., she didn't like it. She gave it a half star out of 5. The movie is a bore. Too long, you can't help but get tired of its flaws. Cole D said, 4 out of 5, by the way. Visually stunning and a plot that actually makes sense is all that was expected from Zack Snyder's cut. And that's exactly what we got. Michael R., he went all the way with 5 out of 5. I think this film was great, and Cyborg was great as the heart of this film. And Chevlin B. said, 5 out of 5 as well. This movie is an art. Each and every character is so important for the story and has character arc unlike the theatrical version. New characters like Flash and Cyborg steal the show, and big characters maintains the epicness. Absolute feast. By the way, 5 out of 5. Patrick C. says he has 3.5 out of 5. Much better than the original theatrical release. Still not perfect, as would be too long for a cinematic release. And Nico B., who gave 3 out of 5, said, while the 4-hour runtime is a bit excessive for a superhero movie like this, Zack Snyder's Justice League delivers the DCEU team-up film these iconic heroes deserve. Plenty of exciting acts, as well as deep characterization than the film's original release. And Snyder finally being able to bring to light his original vision that is sure to satisfy all the fans who helped make it happen and made it a reality. So it's really interesting to hear fans talk about movies, because I'm critics, whatever, I don't really care. Fans are the ones really, or audiences are the ones that the movies are made for. So there you have it. You guys have a good